They ran, they hid, they locked the doors for fear of the Jews. Then something happened. Something so powerful that these broken, grieving, cowardly men and women went from hiding in terror to boldly proclaiming Jesus was alive in the very city where he was crucified. And most of them ended up dying for that claim. Welcome to episode 5 of Jesus Unfiltered, historical evidence that changes everything. We've seen the historical Jesus, we've seen the fulfilled prophecies, we've seen the brutal, undisputed crucifixion, we've seen the strong case for the empty tomb. Now we come to the single most important question left. What did the disciples actually see after Jesus died? The earliest Christians' statement about the resurrection is not found in the Gospels. It's found in a creed that most scholars date to within 2 to 5 years of the crucifixion. 1 Corinthians 15, 3-8. For I delivered to you, first of all, that which I also received, that Christ died for our sins according to the scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he rose again the third day according to the scriptures, and that he was seen by Cephas, then by 12. After that, he was seen by over 500 brethren at once. After that, he was seen by James, then by all the apostles. Then last of all, he was seen by me also, as by one born out of due time. This is not a later legend. This is extremely early testimony written down and passed on within the lifetime of the eyewitnesses. Let's look at some of the different types of appearances, because the variety is actually very hard to explain away. So let's look at Mary Magdalene. She was alone in the garden, John 20, 11-18. A single individual rules out group hallucination. To all the other women, there are multiple people in Matthew 28, 9-10. And then Peter was alone, and that was mentioned in 1 Corinthians 15 and Luke 24:34. There's 2 disciples on the road to Emmaus. There's a long conversation that happens in the breaking of bread in Luke 24:13-35. And then there's disciples without Thomas. They're all locked in a room, and then Jesus just appears in John 20, 19-23. And then there's the disciples with Thomas a week later, a touch invitation in John 20, 24-29. And then there's 7 disciples while fishing, very detailed, breakfast on the beach, John 21. And then there's over 500 people at one time, 1 Corinthians 15:6. Paul says most were still alive when he wrote. Anyone could have interviewed them. And then there's James, Jesus' own skeptical brother, 1 Corinthians 15:7. And then Paul on the road to Damascus. Paul was like so anti-Christians in Acts 9. So Lee Strobel asked the experts this exact question. Could this just be a mass hallucination, all of these sightings? And the answer from a psychologist and medical experts that he interviewed was no, not even close. Hallucinations are individual experiences, not group experiences. And then there's different groups, different times, there was different locations and different emotional states. People touched him, ate with him, talked with him for extended periods of time. Like Jesus was walking among the living. The appearance transformed people, like lives were being transformed by the appearance of a living, real, live Jesus. James went from unbeliever, leader of the Jerusalem church. Paul went from a violent persecutor to greatest missionary. The disciples went from hiding to preaching in temple courts, willing to risk their lives. And most of them, a lot of them, I think even actually most, did lose their lives for the cause of Jesus. So here's some common objections. Objection 1, they were just grieving and they imagined it. But grief hallucinations are short, individual, and never involved eating or teaching or being touched repeatedly over 40 days. Objection number 2 is the appearance were spiritual visions and not physical. But the texts emphasize physicality, eating fish, showing wounds, being touched, walking, talking for hours. And then there's objection 3. It was a later legend that grew over time. But if we go back to the 1 Corinthians 15 creed, it's dated extremely early. Remember, we talked about that legends are like over hundreds of years, and this is like within 2 to 5 years. So there's no early competing story that said the body is still in the tomb. Strobel's conclusion after interviewing the experts is the resurrection appearance are among the best attested facts of the entire case. Something happened, something very real happened, something physical, something that changed terrified people into people who were willing to die. And they did die for what they said they saw. A lot of them lost their lives, but they were willing to risk their lives to share with everybody they knew that Jesus was the Messiah. He rose again and he was resurrected. The appearance are the key that unlocked everything else. An empty tomb, physical appearances to many people over many days is the best historical explanation for the explosive beginning of Christianity. So the next episode, we're going to look at the hardest question of all. What is the best explanation that covers all the facts? Death, empty tomb, appearances, and the birth of the church. Subscribe, like me. I drop podcasts every Tuesday and Fridays, and you don't want to miss episode 6, the alternate theories. Do they hold up? Comment below which appearance most convinces you that something extraordinary happened. Thanks for watching with an open heart. See you in the next one. God bless.